Hello all, I am William S. Jagetz, founding principal with Family Financial Management Practice. We are a wealth management firm focused in areas of tax planning and estate planning. Here on the Collector's Life YouTube channel, we focus on issues around legacy planning for art collectors and artists. Today I'm going to talk with Vashti Dubois. Ms. Dubois is the founder and director of the Colored Girls Museum in Philadelphia. She is also a prominent art collector. So we're going to talk to her a little bit about her art collecting journey and her legacy plans for her art collection. I want to take a moment and shout this piece out. This is by Rosalind Nichol. This piece is from her Vestures series. It's called Meditation. And I happen to own this. This is mine. And it is on long-term loan here at the Colored Girls Museum. This beautiful work is primarily handmade paper with some elements of antique lace. Rosalind Nichol is a master paper maker. She's one of the few master paper makers certified in the U.S., and even fewer of them are African-American women. So please like, subscribe, share, and now we're going to talk to Ms. Vashti Dubois. Vashti Dubois, founder and executive director of the Colored Girls Museum. Thank you for sitting with me today. I appreciate it. Give us, please, the brief bio and 15 seconds on the Colored Girls Museum.
Sure. We're celebrating our 8th year this year, 2024. Founded in 2015, the Colored Girls Museum celebrates the ordinary, extraordinary colored girl through the submission of art and artifact, which is significant to our experience. We are a public ritual for the protection, praise, and grace of ordinary colored girls. And we are the only institution of our kind centering Black girlhood anywhere.
We are talking today because you are a prolific art collector and relatively new, if I'm not mistaken,
I am.
to collecting.
I consider myself an accidental collector. That is to say, I didn't really set out to have a collection. Even when we started doing the museum, I was nervous about that because when you focus on collections, then you also have to concern yourself with a host of other things. Mm-hmm. And your work can quickly become about how you preserve a collection as opposed to sort of the fundamental principles of a Colored Girls Museum, which is really to celebrate ordinary Black women and girls through the submission of art and artifact that's significant to our experience. And so as our collection grows, we have to concern ourselves with how we're going to care for the collection, where we're going to place the collection, and how we're going to imagine legacy for this collection. And we're only 8 years in. We have primarily works on loan from artists who show at this museum every year. William's piece, Meditation, is actually the first piece that's really on loan from a collector in this way. Clemmons, who's the curator for the Colored Girls Museum, has some pieces here from his collection. Primarily, we're hosting the work of artists here at the Colored Girls Museum.
This behind us is Michael Clemmons, the ceramic work.
This is his stoneware. He has a collection of these plates that he's still working on. He also has ceramic vessels. You caught some of those in the shot in front of Meditation.
Yeah, Michael is unique in that he and his wife are serious art collectors, and he's an artist. Let's go back to your collection. Refer to yourself as an accidental collector.
I am an accidental collector.
All the collectors are accidental.
Oh, okay.
And you know this, like most of us don't set out. So you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to be an art collector. No. You buy some art for whatever reason, and then you got another piece and another piece, and then all of a sudden you got a lot of it, and then you look at it and you start to curate it, and then
that's very true.
Then you're a collector. So
I might have said that I'm a reluctant collector because I keep saying, I'm not. We're just gonna have work on loan here. We're gonna really motivate and encourage people who come to the museum to support the artists that we show here, but we're not going to be the collectors. I'm not going to be the collector because this is a small space. And also, again, I'm really, really thinking about what it means to steward a collection. Mm-hmm. It's a whole other set of considerations, some of which you've covered in your other podcasts.
But let's talk about some of what you perceived would be challenges and how they've actually played out and how you've addressed those.
The first challenge is going to be how do you care for this? So many of the works in our collection right now are actually fiber, right? So mm-hmm. we have quilts, we have paper, we have felt sculptures. So you're thinking about, well, how does one preserve it? How does one move it? How does it age over time? Also thinking about, okay, this is a house museum.
Right.
So even things that you don't think about at first, but as you get into insurance and concerns like that, you're thinking, okay, well, if we have a sprinkler system that goes off, God forbid, should there be a fire, like what impact does that have on some of our specific work? Those aren't things that you're thinking about. Obviously insurance covers it, but it will fundamentally destroy the work.
Yeah.
So it really, at least I start thinking as the collection grows, I start thinking about what I collect in a way that I didn't before, because I am thinking about things like, well, what happens if the work, what happens if the work gets destroyed in some way? We have a piece by Nastasha Swift, which is a felt sculpture, and it had a run-in with a squirrel. Mm. And, blessedly, Nastasha Swift is her own sort of doll hospital, so she was able to come out and restore the piece. But again, it got me really thinking about, like, how do you prepare for that? And some of these things you really can't prepare for. If we weren't a museum, and I was really just thinking about my personal collection, how would I even be thinking about these things? But now I'm thinking about longevity. Right. I'm thinking about being able to share and show this work in perpetuity. So I really want to protect the work, pace myself in such a way that the work of the museum does not become, oh my God, we have to really, really like watch this collection. We can't be a community museum anymore. We can't really be thinking about our artists anymore, at least not in the same way, because stewarding collection is a whole job in and of itself. And that's not what we set out to do.
So we accumulate, we love the collection, but we don't want it to be a distraction from the primary mission, because attending to an art collection is a whole job.
It is. The Colored Girls Museum centers Black girlhood. Black girlhood never leaves us, and so although the primary artists in this museum are women, mm-hmm. what we're asking people to really think about is the impact of girlhood. Storytelling that is happening in these curated rooms is very specific to both this population that mm-hmm. that we serve and that we have interest in, as well as an idea, right, that we want more people to buy works by Black women and Black girls. So we have an intention, especially since we have the advantage of being a house museum to present work in such a way that people can imagine it in their homes.
Mm-hmm.
And these artists are accessible. Many of them are Philadelphia-based artists.
Mm-hmm.
And so it really, when we talk about the work, it's not just, explaining like what the materials are, what the artist's intent is, but rather inviting people to think about the possibility of having their own collection based on what they love.
So you have the challenges of every collector, but magnified because you have a public space as far as preservation.
It does.
And you
also
got
travel.
And travels.
Right.
Okay, because you probably do traveling exhibitions and just the amount of people coming through the space.
Sure.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. So those are and again, these are concerns we all have, but in a museum space, these are going to be multiplied even more. The advantage, I think, of being in a museum space is people get to see your work.
It's true.
Right? Because a lot of us, specifically myself, Rosalind, who, did the meditation piece, she made me aware, should have been obvious, she said, because of the way you collect, you have work that nobody's ever seen. I interact with artists and I buy work right out of the studio. It's right off the easel into my place. Never sees the public, And even if I buy something from a gallery, still, maybe it was seen before I bought it. But once it's in my place, it doesn't get out a lot. And that is, something I'm working on addressing. I work with curators and lend.
Right, I was going to say that's definitely
so that it can be, seen publicly, and
that's great for, for us, for a place like Color Girls Museum, because, as I said, much of our work is coming to us directly from the artist, and
right.
So when we have collectors, in the museum, there's always that opportunity that you'll see something that you'll meet an artist here that you've not known or seen before,
right.
And that's an opportunity for you to perhaps collect their work.
Let's talk about acquisition strategies based on what the theme of an incoming show is going to be.
Yes, it is.
Okay, so the show that's here now is called Sit a Spell.
Correct.
So give us 15 seconds on that.
Is a show that we dropped. Now it's been here for about 1.5 years, so it's probably one of the longest shows we've had. And in addition to asking artists to submit around the theme, so to really look at their collection and understand what we mean by sit a spell, which is the museum at this point is asking us in this time that we find ourselves in, that rather than respond to everything, because there's a lot going on in the world right now, that we sit a spell. And so each of the rooms is curated to invite you to do that. And the works in each of the room in some way either invite you to sit a spell or give you a reason to sit a spell. So some of the pieces, for example, that you'll see behind us, give you an opportunity to just really, really meditate on the work itself and sit with it. We also did a special call for what we call spell chairs, and these are chairs that are commissioned from artists, which are what we call invocation chairs. So they're spell work on behalf of the museum. They are in some way invoking something. So really thinking about the word spell and spell work and putting that in a chair.
Again, there's going to be links in the description, and you'll be able to see some of what's on display here currently at the Colored Girls Museum and the Sit a Spell show. How often, and I think I know the answer to this, how often are you acquiring work that is not thematically in line with the current exhibition, but you just need to have it because the artist is doing things that you want to be a part of, or the work itself is just speaking to you?
Every year I mean, there's certain things that we collect that we're on all the time, like portraits of ordinary colored girls. So we know we're going to do that. Mm-hmm. But I would say, especially this year, this was a really powerful year of meeting artists outside of my general sort of purview. I had my eyes on New York artists because I'm originally from New York. Obviously, like Philadelphia artists, Boston artists, because these are places that I've been. You know, I have to thank you for introducing this museum to a number of really dope Jersey artists, because I'm not a Jersey girl, so I didn't know. But there are some extraordinary. Now I know, and listen, like I will still rap Philly and New York all day, but that's really a really good example of me personally collecting outside of a show, where I just really saw artists who I thought were doing extraordinary things, and I wanted to be part of that conversation. I wanted the museum to be able to join that conversation. And sometimes that work, I may collect that work and it's on pause before it really becomes part of a show. Mm-hmm. And sometimes I'll just sneak it into a show because I just love it so much. Also, I do think a lot about our audiences here at the Colored Girls Museum and take some cues from what people are responding to. Right. Or what I want people to respond to, because we have the opportunity to also be in the education space. And so we take advantage of that. They're different, whether it's, mixed media, whether it's fiber work, whether work is figurative, just being able to think about, well, what haven't you perhaps seen before? What haven't you thought about before? What might you be able to think about differently? I also do consider that.
Quickly, I want to shout out my affiliate partner, Artwork Archive. I know that the Colored Girls Museum is beginning the process of digitizing the collection and digitizing the archive of that collection. And Artwork Archive is the way to do it. Every work of art, when it was acquired, who did it, at your fingertips, where it is. Work goes out on loan, you know exactly where it is, you know how long it's been there, all the documents that go with that, loan agreements, insurance papers, all of these things at your fingertips. If you're a collector, if you're an institution, if you're a gallery, if you're an artist, you have inventory, Artwork Archive, give it a look. There's going to be a link in the description, and my God, I don't even know how they do it at the price that they do, but it is terribly inexpensive, and you want to give it a look. So again, thank you to our affiliate partner, Artwork Archive, and then let's get back to this part of the conversation. In terms of legacy, this is a museum, so that's the legacy. One day when you're not here, the museum will still be here, sure, and the art will still be here. Are there other pieces to that are not that simple that you're working on, as far as what your legacy individually and the legacy of the museum will be in terms of the art collection?
I do think about, like, who's archiving, who's archiving Black women, who's archiving this idea of Black girlhood. And I imagine that, if the world is, destroyed mostly one day, that these pieces that have been collected by the Colored Girls Museum might in fact be one of the few places where you have evidence of ordinary Black women and girls, where somebody thought about, not the Oprah Winfrey's or the Michelle Obamas, but just like ordinary colored girls in a place right. like Philadelphia. And then the weight of that, right? Like how do we preserve that? How do we create an archive? How do we make sure that somewhere out here, right, this story still can live? Somebody can find it one day. And, so the museum is really now just beginning to imagine how to separate. One of the things that I'm really concerning myself with right now is whether or not it will be the Colored Girls Museum, the foundation, separate from Colored Girls Museum, the building and the artwork, because the artwork is owned in some cases jointly. They're pieces that I've purchased when the museum wasn't able to purchase,
Mm-hmm.
and they're pieces that are owned by the museum. I have a family. I love my family, but I actually want the museum and her artworks to move forward separate from the family. I want them to have a life of their own. And so setting the house and her holdings up in trust has really been, we're at the beginning of that sort of what feels like a complicated conversation. It feels like it takes on a different kind of weight.
Mm-hmm.
And so how we're going to do it feels a little daunting, to be perfectly honest.
Okay, and that's not uncommon. I will praise you because you are moving forward in that daunting process. I work with clients on estate planning, legacy planning, and some of my favorite clients to work with, as you can imagine, I find it's something we'll often have conversations about for a long time before anything actually kicks off, because it is daunting.
Yeah.
But I would encourage you, one, if this is a conversation that you want to have about the ongoing legacy of your art collection, then we, Family Financial Management Practice, would love to talk to you about that and help you with it. But if you do it with us, if you do it with anybody, you got to do it.
Yeah.
And I say this all the time: it's in front of you until it's behind you.
No, that's very true. And we started thinking about it and making moves about 2 years ago, and a pandemic happened. And so it's actually more front of mind now because you talk about it all the time. The wrong way to do it is to do absolutely nothing, especially when you have a collection like this.
Absolutely. Yeah, you can't not do anything. But yeah, what do you have to do? First, you got to give some thought to what the outcome is that you want. And once you've given that some thought, then you can talk about the pathways to getting there. And you've begun that process. So that's awesome. That's great, because this is quite a collection, and the thought of this collection, having spent time with it and knowing what's here, and a lot of these artists I know personally, but just the thought of this being dispersed to the winds, to the four corners is, it's a distressing thought.
Yeah.
And you have children, you love your children, I have children. Breaking up the art collection and giving it to the kids is a thing you could do, but it's not going to come out well. Now, if your kids are interested, you could definitely have them participate and be engaged with the stewarding of the collection as trustees, as trustees of, whatever trust manages your art collection. Once you set that up, as trustees of your family foundation, once you set that up,
Right.
So that the children who are interested can, participate, but you're putting up some very serious guardrails.
What I think about quite often, because I also have a substantial book collection, is that I don't want to burden my family with having to understand what my intentions are, or with feeling as though something that they're not interested in is their responsibility.
Yeah, that's also not uncommon, and people I state out loud and say, I don't want that because it's too heavy.
Right.
And look, if your kids are savvy to that, then call it a blessing, because the alternative is they don't say it out loud, they end up with the heavy and it gets mismanaged.
Right.
Or they don't know that it's heavy and
and they drop it
so that it's mismanaged. And, you know, the only way to mess this up is to not do anything. So give it some thought, figure out what you want your legacy to look like. And, you know, like Vashti and the Colored Girls Museum, get to work on it. Yes, there's some work to do, but, you know, you can't not do it.
It's very true. One thing that I do want to say, as you think about collecting, is like begin with your children. You know, go to the art shows in universities and high schools. Like a lot of people, when they hear the word collecting, you know, they think about the $3,000, $5,000, $10,000, $25,000. But collecting art is about figuring out where your love is, what really tugs at your heartstring, and you can find that just about anywhere. You can be the person that puts somebody in your collection that but for you nobody else would know their name, and that's pretty important. And if you have a mission like the Colored Girls Museum to amplify the work of Black women and girls, that's really, really, really important.
It is. It's important. And again, you all are doing a great job of it. So thank you for that. And thank you for hanging out with us. This is what we're doing, Collector's Life. We're talking to collectors and artists about the things that are important to us. And, you know, what are the challenges? What are the solutions? Why is it fun? Why is it sexy?
Yeah.
So, if you're liking this, please like, subscribe, share, put on the alert button so when new posts go up, you'll get them. And thank you for being here too. And I'll talk with you all soon. Be good.